Power does not announce when it has settled. It reveals itself in silence. The world had changed, not violently, not suddenly, but completely. Where chaos once threatened to tear creation apart, order now held firm. The seas obeyed boundaries they had never known. Mountains stood where they were commanded to rise. Storms gathered only when permitted. The universe had stopped trembling, and that frightened it. Cronus ruled, not from a throne of stone or gold, but from presence alone. His authority did not need to be displayed. It lingered in the air, pressed into the land, whispered through the heavens. The Titans felt it everywhere. They called this peace, but peace born from fear is rarely quiet. Cronus watched the world carefully, too carefully. He remembered how Uranus had ruled, distant, absolute, blind to the suffering beneath him. Cronus swore he would never become that. And yet, he watched everything. The Titans moved differently now. Their laughter was cautious, their disagreements brief. None challenged openly. None wished to be the first to test the limits of the new order. Power had shifted, but memory remained. They remembered chains. They remembered the sky. And now they remembered who had ended it. Gaia felt the earth grow still beneath Cronus's rule. Stillness is not balance. It is restraint. She had not spoken since the sky fell, not because she could not, but because she needed to see. Cronus had given the world structure, but structure, once established, demands protection, and protection demands vigilance. The heavens were quieter now. Stars returned to their paths. Storms obeyed seasons. The cosmos, once fractured, was knitting itself back together, but it did so under watchful eyes. Cronus looked to the future, and he saw threats everywhere. He saw rebellion in whispered conversations. He saw ambition in silence. He saw danger not in action, but in possibility. This was how fear began, not from enemies, from imagination. The Titans gathered often, not in councils, in proximity. They stayed close to Cronus, not because he demanded it, but because distance now felt unsafe. One by one they adjusted. They spoke less. They obeyed more. They accepted that stability had a cost. Cronus noticed, and the noticing changed him. He remembered being watched, remembered the weight of unseen judgment pressing down from the heavens. And he told himself, "This is different. This is necessary." But the earth remembered otherwise. Gaia felt the first tremors of imbalance, small, almost imperceptible, the kind of disturbance that only something ancient could sense. Cronus had begun to rule not by trust, but by anticipation. He reinforced borders that had not been tested, strengthened defenses no one had threatened, ordered vigilance where peace still held. The Titans complied. They told themselves it was temporary. That caution was wisdom. That control was safety, and Cronus believed them, because believing them made the fear easier to bear. The sky remained distant, bound, contained. Uranus no longer screamed. He watched, silent, waiting. Cronus avoided looking toward him. Some victories are easier to accept when not examined too closely. The world continued to function. Life endured. Creation flourished. And yet, something was missing. Hope does not vanish loudly. It fades. The Titans began to dream less. They planned less. They wondered less. Certainty had replaced curiosity. Cronus told himself this was order, but deep beneath the earth, Gaia felt the truth settling like stone. This was the first weight of tyranny, not cruelty, not violence, but fear of losing what had been taken. The throne had been claimed, but it was fear that now sat upon it. The future did not reveal itself all at once. It never does. It allowed itself to be discovered, piece by piece, pressure by pressure, until denial became impossible. Cronus began to notice patterns that would not loosen their grip. Certain moments repeated themselves across time. Certain outcomes resisted change no matter how carefully he adjusted the world. Paths diverged, but always curved back toward the same unseen destination. Fate was not blocking him. It was guiding him, and that terrified him. He descended into the deepest places of the world for the first time since the sky fell, not with ceremony, not with witnesses, but alone. The earth opened reluctantly. Gaia did not bar his way, but she did not welcome him either. Stone shifted, roots parted, and ancient corridors revealed themselves with the patience of something that had waited far longer than any god. Cronus felt the weight of ages press against him as he moved downward. This was not a place of rule. This was a place of truth. Here, beneath order and law, the world remembered everything. Cronus sensed it before he saw it. A disturbance, not violent, not loud, but absolute. Something small, something inevitable. The chamber lay hidden within layers of stone that predated even the Titans. The air itself felt heavier, saturated with meaning rather than substance. Light behaved strangely here, bending as though uncertain how to exist. At the center of the chamber, the earth pulsed faintly, not with life, with potential. Cronus stopped. He did not approach. Power does not rush toward what it fears. The earth spoke without words. Images pressed into his awareness, not visions of the present, but echoes of futures that refused to remain distant. A ruler rising, a ruler falling, a son standing where a father once stood. Cronus recoiled internally, not from the images, from the implication. The prophecy did not accuse him. It did not threaten him. It simply continued. Cronus felt something cold settle in his chest. A realization long delayed. He was not the final ruler of this age. The earth did not name the threat. Names give comfort. This prophecy offered none. Cronus withdrew from the depths without a word. The chamber closed behind him as though it had never existed. But the knowledge remained. From that moment on, Cronus ruled differently. Order was no longer enough. Stability was no longer enough. He needed permanence. The Titans noticed the change immediately. Cronus's presence grew heavier. His silence sharpened. His attention lingered where once it passed freely. He asked questions no one could answer safely. What do you dream of? What future do you imagine? What do you desire that has not yet been given? The Titans learned quickly. Dreams became dangerous. Imagination became suspicious. Hope became something to hide. Cronus told himself this was vigilance, that a ruler must know what grows beneath his reign, that ignorance had destroyed the sky. But Gaia felt the truth tremble through her bones. This was not vigilance. It was fear turning inward. The prophecy did not fade, it sharpened. Cronus began to see it everywhere. In the way the earth shifted beneath him, in the way storms hesitated before breaking, in the way the future seemed to resist being fully shaped. The idea took root, small, poisonous. If the future threatens me, then the future must be controlled. Cronus reinforced the world again, not outwardly, internally. Laws became rigid, cycles became fixed, change slowed. Time itself began to feel heavier, less fluid, more constrained. The Titans obeyed, but obedience had changed its nature. It was no longer agreement, it was survival. Gaia felt sorrow for him then, not because he was cruel, but because he was becoming careful. She had seen this before. Carefulness is the cradle of tyranny. Cronus avoided the depths after that, avoided the chamber, avoided the place where inevitability had brushed too close. But the knowledge followed him. He dreamed again, more clearly this time, a child, hidden, protected, growing beyond his reach. Cronus woke with fury burning behind his calm exterior, not at the imagined child, at the loss of control. He summoned the Titans, not to celebrate, not to plan, but to observe. He watched how they looked at one another, how alliances shifted quietly, how silence concealed intent. The prophecy did not tell him who would rise, only that someone would. And so Cronus made a decision that would define the age. No future would be allowed to form without his knowledge. No power would grow unchecked. No possibility would be permitted to exist beyond his sight. He did not declare this. Declarations invite resistance. He implemented it. The world accepted the change quietly, because the world had learned fear. Gaia felt the earth tighten around the future, not preventing birth, delaying it. The moment fear gains certainty, it ceases to be fear. It becomes doctrine. Cronus did not rage. He did not lash out. He did not announce his dread to the world. That was never his way. Instead, he refined it. The world felt the change before it understood it. Not in violence, not in suffering, but in limitation. Possibility narrowed. Choices that once existed quietly disappeared, replaced by paths that led only where they were permitted to go. Time itself seemed to slow, thickening around moments of change, resisting deviation. The future was being guarded. Cronus watched everything now, not from suspicion, from certainty. The Titans sensed the shift immediately. Tasks once assigned for balance became inspections. Councils became assessments. Silence was no longer neutral. It was interpreted. No one was accused. No one was punished. And yet, everyone felt seen. This was the brilliance of Cronus's rule. It did not need cruelty to function. It relied on awareness. Gaia felt the earth strain beneath the pressure. Roots bent where they once grew freely. Rivers followed courses carved too precisely to be natural. The world was no longer allowed to surprise itself. Creation was being curated. Cronus believed this was wisdom. The sky had failed because it ignored what grew beneath it. He would not make the same mistake. He studied the Titans carefully. Who questioned too slowly, who dreamed too deeply, who lingered too long in uncertainty. Dreams became scarce. Sleep grew shallow. The future learned to hide. Gaia felt sorrow ripple through the stone. She had seen this pattern before, long before sky or Titan. Fear always begins with protection. It ends with erasure. Cronus's thoughts returned again and again to the same unspoken truth. The prophecy did not say when, only that replacement was inevitable. And inevitability, once acknowledged, becomes intolerable. He began to test the limits of fate. Small adjustments at first, subtle interventions, moments redirected before they could unfold. When storms gathered where they should not, he stilled them. When the earth stirred too deeply, he calmed it. When whispers of change rose among the Titans, he redirected attention elsewhere. The world responded obediently, because the world had learned fear too. Cronus mistook this compliance for stability. He told himself that peace had never been so complete, that chaos had finally been mastered, that the future, once wild, was now contained. But fate does not resist control loudly. It adapts. Gaia sensed the shift immediately. The prophecy did not weaken. It sharpened. The more Cronus restricted possibility, the more tightly the future coiled around a single outcome. Where many paths once existed, now only one remained. And that path grew darker. Cronus felt it in his dreams. They no longer shifted. They repeated. A single image returned again and again, a figure rising where he stood, a ruler ending as all rulers do. Cronus woke each time with the same conclusion. This must be prevented. He summoned the Titans again, this time not to listen, but to instruct. Roles were clarified, boundaries enforced, responsibilities expanded. Everything had a place, and nothing was allowed to grow beyond it. The Titans obeyed, not because they agreed, but because resistance had become unimaginable. Gaia watched as the earth hardened around the future, not preventing birth, forcing it. The prophecy began to seek concealment. Where once it whispered freely, now it hid. Possibility learned caution. Cronus did not notice this. He believed control was working, and that belief made him dangerous. He turned his attention toward permanence. What could not be undone? What could not rise against him? What could not replace him? The idea formed slowly, and once formed, it refused to leave. If the future cannot be trusted, then it must be neutralized. Gaia felt the earth recoil, not in anger, in grief, for she knew what came next. Cronus stood at the center of an ordered world and felt no relief, only vigilance, only the endless weight of maintaining what he had taken. The prophecy watched him in return, patient, unyielding. When rulers attempt to imprison the future, they ensure it will strike back with perfect timing. There comes a moment when fear stops asking questions, when it no longer wonders if something must be done, only when. Cronus reached that moment quietly. No thunder marked it. No omen announced it. The world did not tremble. That would come later. The prophecy had narrowed too far to ignore. Possibility had collapsed inward, tightening around a single, unavoidable truth. Something would rise. And when it did, Cronus would fall. He stood alone beneath the ordered heavens and felt no anger. Only resolve. Fear had not broken him. It had clarified him. Cronus told himself that this was not cruelty, that this was not tyranny. This was prevention. The sky had failed because it ruled blindly. Cronus would not repeat that mistake. He would act before the future could act against him. Gaia felt the shift immediately. The earth does not misunderstand intention. It recognizes it. Stone tightened. Roots recoiled. Deep within the world, something ancient curled inward, as though bracing itself. Cronus did not consult the Titans. Consultation invites doubt, and doubt delays action. He watched them instead, observed patterns, measured loyalty, measured fear, measured silence. Some Titans had begun to hide things, not rebellions, not plots, something smaller, something far more dangerous, hope. Cronus felt it in the way they guarded their thoughts, in the way they turned away when he passed, in the way the future seemed to flicker behind their eyes. The prophecy did not need to name its vessel. Cronus understood. It would come through lineage, through blood, through what the future always chooses when power tries to deny it, succession. The realization did not horrify him. It steadied him. Cronus returned again and again to the same conclusion. If the future was born through him, then it could be stopped through him. Gaia felt grief spread through the stone like cold. She had watched rulers fall before, but rarely had she seen one choose this path so calmly. Cronus began to act, carefully, quietly. He did not announce decrees. He did not demand sacrifices. He did not raise armies. He simply removed uncertainty. Cradles were watched. Silence was enforced. The future learned to hold its breath. The Titans sensed it. They did not understand it yet, but they felt the world tightening in places it had never tightened before. Fear spread, not as panic, but as restraint. Cronus told himself that this was temporary, that once the threat was gone, the world could loosen again, that peace would finally be permanent. Gaia knew better. The earth always does. Once a ruler chooses to destroy the future to preserve the present, there is no return. Cronus stood at the edge of an ordered world and felt the weight of eternity press down upon him. For the first time since the sky fell, he felt truly alone. The prophecy watched, not with malice, with patience. Because fate does not rush those who are already walking toward it. Cronus raised his gaze toward the horizon, toward a future he no longer trusted, toward possibilities he could no longer allow. His decision settled fully then, not as rage, not as desperation, but as certainty. The world did not resist him. It had learned obedience too well. Gaia turned away. She had done all she could. The choice was no longer hers, and somewhere, deep within the folds of possibility, the future adjusted. Not avoided, delayed, sharpened. This was the moment the age truly darkened. Not when power was taken, but when fear decided the future must die.